In today's video, I'm going to show you how I like to track the profits and losses associated with buying and selling trading cards and sports cards. It's something that I've been using for quite a long time. It helps me track things. Like I said, I've seen lots of questions lately on social media and on YouTube videos and things like that with people asking, what's the best way to do this? It's pretty basic how I like to do it, so I thought we can get straight into it. Now, before we go into the detail, just keep in mind, there's a million different ways to try and track this sort of stuff, right? This is just how I like to do it. I know sometimes people like to do things differently, so don't judge me if you do a different method. If you do use a different method, please share it down in the comments below, but this is how I like to do it. So typically, the first thing that I'll do is just make a spreadsheet in Excel, right? Or I'll use Excel or Google Sheets as I'm using right now. Now, the stuff you're seeing on screen is my pickups for the Hobby Hangout. Hobby Hangout was a card show we just had here in Sydney 2 weeks ago, or a week and a half ago, I should say. These were all the things that I purchased purely to then sell there, and I wanted to track my profits, right? So basically what I did was I listed out every single card I purchased. So as soon as I made a purchase on, eBay, MySlabs, Ship My Cards, any other kind of purchase, right? I came here, put the details in, because the more detail you put in, the easier, the price, and then what I intend to sell it for. So you'll see something like here where I've got some very basic fields that you create, right? You've got the grader, what grade the card has, because this is primarily all slabbed cards, the name of the card, the purchase price, sales price, what I do in fact sell it for, and then the profit for that individual card, okay? Now keep in mind, this will help you understand, not just how individual card sales are tracking, but also teach you that, sometimes it's okay to sell a card for a loss. And I'll get to that thought process in a second. I do want to apologize in advance if you see any typos here. My wife typed all this out for me because when we were out pricing all the cards, I was pricing them as she was filling this out for me. So sometimes she doesn't know the player's name. So if you do see a typo like EB over here, please forgive me. So typically you want to put as much detail in here as possible, because if you're at a show and you want to track things on the fly, Google Sheets you can access from your phone, right? You quickly search for the name if it's, or you could filter for, filter down for the specific grade, or for the grade if you want to try and expedite things, right? You do that, you can get to quickly, you put the price in, then it's bang, tracked for the day. Because what often happens is, and it happened to me at the City Hobby Hangout, a lot of this stuff I wasn't able to track, right? Because sales are coming too fast. So at the end of the day, you'll see some things here where, the sold prices may not be super accurate. And to give you some context, all the stuff here in orange are things that didn't sell at the Hobby Hangout. Everything below that are things that did sell. So prices are basically there, right? You get the point. Now, typically what you do is you put this all in here, right? And then this what highlights to you a few things. One, this is all my purchases. So it says, okay, well, I spent 1,870 Australian dollars getting all this stuff, right? There's a few other things I purchased in my last Ship My Cards order that wasn't captured in here, but it's not, it just gives you that high level understanding, right? And then the second column being the total sales price. If I sell everything for what I expect to sell it for, I'll get 2,940 bucks, so I'll make $1,000 profit, which is pretty good, right? Because at the end of the day, any profit is a good profit. There's a point in here I want to get to in a second that makes it, even better. And then obviously I've got a total here for what I did actually sell it for. So you can see here, I had some additional sales at the Hobby Hangout that wasn't tracked, but what's showing that even though I haven't sold, half the cards, I've got a profit greater than what I purchased the cards for, right? So you can see I had 1,870, I sold everything. I've made 1,975 so far, and I've still got a crap ton of cards to sell. The other thing that's really good with tracking this sort of stuff, right? I've talked about this many times in my videos, is that putting it in this format very clearly highlights to you, whether you've recovered your costs or not, because it's quite basic, the calculation, right? You take the purchase price, the sales price, and then your profit or loss, right? And doing this format gives you some insights. And I've had some people in the past, question my collecting approach, right? And if you would have heard me talk about how I like to collect, I like to, buy things to sell to fund my PC. So you'll see down here, I've got some things here like my Donnarumma Gold, cost me 200 bucks. SGC 10, my Marco Verratti True 1 of 1 cost me 600 Australian dollars, right? So they're currently factored in to the purchase price of all these slabs, but the sales price isn't. So I've sold everything for 1,975 bucks, which means I've got these two cards in my PC for free. Now, having this sort of tracker, right, to track your sales helps you identify those kinds of things, right? And it makes you feel comfortable if you think maybe you've overspent or you're maybe not making much money back in return. And this is just really good for that reason, right? The other point as to why this is really good, and we'll highlight to you why it's okay to make a loss sometimes, is because what you'll often find when you put it in this format, it makes everything very black and white, right? You very clearly see what you sold each individual card for. So you'll see some things in here that, some cards in here that I made huge profits on, where you've got like this Magic Johnson, all right? I bought the slab for 12 bucks, I sold it for 60, okay? Which is crazy, right? And what you need to understand is, that was a really good deal. Maybe I couldn't have sold it for more on eBay in the US, but here in Australia, it's much harder to get cards in. So when we do get high-end cards that are a bit rare, you can make good profits, which is why it's really fun, right? But you can see here on this card that I didn't expect to make a whole lot of money on because it cost me peanuts, right? I did. So sometimes when you then go to sell a more expensive card and maybe you only make like a $5 profit, or you end up breaking even and you make a $10 loss, that's okay, because you have other things like this that you make a bigger profit on, right? And having something like this in a spreadsheet, albeit very basic, will allow you to very clearly see that, right? It's okay to take a loss on some cards. Ideally, you want to make as much profit as possible and, maximize everything, but the real world doesn't work like that, right? Not every card is going to sell for big money. Not every card is going to sell for a profit. And when you're dealing with huge volumes, that's how you can protect yourself, right? Because some cards will sell for a lot more than what you think they would, okay? Because people maybe want to like haggle you down to a lower price. Or some things that you thought maybe would take a long time to sell really quickly, or the things that you thought might sell really quickly take a long time to sell. So having this volume, having this sort of tracker gives you that insight, which now gives me comfort, right? Because you can see I've still got, we've got what is, it's tough for me to say. I've got like 40 cards still to sell, 25 cards still to sell, 25 to 40 cards still to sell, okay? And I've technically already made a profit. I've broken even. Made a profit because these two cards here that I just told you about were free in my collection. I can stay on my shelf, right? So I've got that many cards still to sell for a huge profit, which means I can then, technically let them go for even lower prices. I could break even on all these cards and still have a $500 profit on top, right? Because if you take the purchase price for these cards, even though a couple of them have sold, you can see there the total $718, right? Even if I break even on these individual cards, I'm going to make a $700 more addition profit, right? Because all these cards are sold down here. Maybe that greater profit. You get what I'm trying to say, right? So that's sort of it. Very basic. Apologies for the camera being so dark. I know what's going on, but that's the approach you should be doing. That's the benefit you get by putting this thing into a spreadsheet, right? When you can track this sort of stuff, it gives you that comfort. Sometimes that, the cards you're selling for that maybe making a loss on, whatever, it's okay. Like when you look at the big picture of things, as long as you're ahead in the big picture and you're winning more times than you're losing, you're going to be fine. Just keep that in mind, because I've seen so many people, panic about this sort of stuff when you really shouldn't. You shouldn't be panicking. If you take this approach, you track everything to this level of detail. It took me like 2 minutes to make this spreadsheet, right? I did it with my wife while we priced out everything. It's not that difficult. And once it's set up, it's done for life, right? And then you just copy and paste the headings, the formulas, you do it again. And then you have those profits and losses again, right? And then just keep building it out. And then eventually you don't even need to use this sort of spreadsheet. I'm at the point now where I'm an accountant, so I'm typically good with numbers anyway, right? But I don't always make a spreadsheet. I just make it for big events or when I have huge volume of cards in, because I can track it, right? And it's really good, when you outlay a bit of cash to try and make a bit of profit, you outlay that cash and then you can slowly see, the profits coming in. It makes you feel really good because you're like, okay, I'm moving towards a goal now. And it makes it even more fun in my instance, where if you factor that in with your PC cards as well, because if I go back to this spreadsheet, you can see here that I've included the purchase price of my PC cards in this total. So it gives me a goal that I'm trying to work towards. So now that means these PC cards cost me nothing. So it makes me feel even better as a collector, right? Because it's like, well, hang on a minute, I got these for free. So if I ever do need to sell things, technically I could sell these cards for $1 each, and that'd be a $2 profit for me overall, right? Which is really good. That's a really good position to be in. And being able to track it like this gives you that insight, gives you that comfort to do that sort of stuff. So I'm really keen to get your thoughts on that down in the comments below. I know it's a very basic video, and I'm sure maybe some of you might laugh or whatever because you might already be doing this. You're saying, Daniel, why the heck are you showing me this crap? Not everyone does this, right? And based on the comments I've seen on social media, it'd be good to share this sort of information. So if you have any other tips on how you like to do this, whether it's just pen and paper, it doesn't have to be in a spreadsheet. Spreadsheet's just easy because you can, go into Google Sheets on your phone, play around with it at the show, and it works. So I'm really keen to get your thoughts on that, because we should be sharing this sort of information as hobbyists, as enthusiasts, right? Because it's really good to share this kind of content with people, help educate people, help people get better so they can then maybe not make so many mistakes or not get too panicked or too stressed when a card doesn't sell for what they think it does. Because like I said, the key message here is this tracking gives you the insight, right, at the individual card level, but it does give you comfort overall that sometimes it's okay to make a loss on a card. If you look at it in the grand scheme of things where, like I have, you've made that big profit, okay, this card might still sell for a loss, but technically it's still profit because I've already made the cost back. I've already recouped the cost for the purchase of that card, right? Yes, it's still a loss because if you kept your money, you would be ahead, but you get the general idea, right? Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. So it is what it is. So I hope you liked the video. Please share your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.